What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Today is Monday, which means Monday Mail Day. I got some good questions. Thanks to everybody who contributed weekly, who leave questions. Can't get to all of them, but I try to thumb up the questions I'll be answering and get to a lot of them. Without further ado, let's get started. First question comes from Boxing Fans of the World, Bobby Price. Do you think that Eddie Hearn will put his man AJ in with Ortiz? Now, I'm a bit skeptical. I think it's a good fight. Right now, I don't know how much money it generates. And the reason I say I'm skeptical is because at the end of the day, Eddie Hearn is a promoter. And he just acquired Luis King Kong Ortiz. Cash cow for him is Anthony Joshua. So sometimes in situations like that, when the fighters don't have, or I guess the promoters don't have the biggest stable, or at least in that division, like it's like, let's say Al Heyman in welterweight, he can afford to put tough welterweight fights together. Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Shawn Porter, Adrien BRoner, things like that, because he has such a vast stable. But Eddie Hearn, he only has two real big heavyweights, and that's AJ and Ortiz. So one of them has to lose that fight. So would you be willing to do that? And if you don't put them in with each other, then there's a good chance that others wouldn't be able to beat him. You know what I'm saying? So if you put him in, one of your fighters has to lose. If you put AJ in with Ortiz, one person under Matchroom Boxing has to lose. But if you put AJ with Andy Ruiz or Luis Ortiz with Andy Ruiz, then there's a chance that Luis Ortiz and AJ, there's a chance that they beat all the top names and contenders. You know what I mean? We don't know, but so far they've been looking real good. So I'm a bit skeptical that they would rush to make that. I think putting either guy in with Deontay Wilder would make more sense from a business perspective, and that's what you have to consider, because Al Heyman is in charge of Deontay Wilder's career. So it's a dangerous fight. Wilder has a bigger name, and at the end of the day, your fighter's going to strike gold if they're the first to beat Deontay Wilder as a pro or knock him out or whatever the situation is. So I would see a Wilder versus Joshua or Ortiz before I see them two fighting each other. Now, same username has another question. Do you think fans owe it to the fighters of the past to watch old fights and learn from history of sport, especially someone trying to comment on the sport? I get annoyed with channels where the host does not know his history. What do you think, Ego? Yeah, I mean, that's just my nature. I'm an Aries, so I'm naturally stubborn, passionate, and that's just how I am. I've always been like that. Like, let's say I watch a movie about an infamous gangster or something, and then after I watch the movie, it makes me want to research the actual person. Like if it's not like a Al Capone or someone I already know about, then it'll make me want to research. Like, oh, this guy, he was dope. You know what I'm saying? And I also do the research. So same thing with boxing. It makes me want to. I'm not expecting everyone to be historians, but you have to know a little bit of something about the past and who came before. Like, that's what's wrong with this generation, to be honest. A lot of people don't know things that were out in the 90s and they were born in the 90s. You know what I mean? They don't know. It's like they're not cultured, like they lived under a rock or something like that. So, yeah, I think you should, if you're a true fan of any sport, why not know some of the history? Like, if you like baseball, why not know the Jackie Robinsons, the Babe Ruth, and the people, you know what I mean, the Jose Cansecos, Barry Bonds, and McGuires. Don't just know the current players, you know what I mean, the Crawfords and Belt and stuff like that. Know a little bit about the past too, so at least a little bit, especially if you're trying to report or commentate on that particular sport. It always pays to know some of the history. You know what I mean? I'm not expecting everyone to be Burt Sugar or something, rest in peace. Next question is from Air Horden. Do you think Adrien fights in 2016, and who will it be? I think he was supposed to fight Ricky Burns, but I think they're going to try to make it in 2017 now, because Burns didn't look that great, so maybe they'll want to wait till people forget. And then the other thing is BRoner, he's had some hiccups. He was in jail for a minute, he got out, then he was doing that alleged suicide thing, and with all that in the air, who knows if he's going to be able to make 140 and make it comfortable. I seen him in the Mayweather doghouse. I did a video about it, but still, there's only a few more months remaining for this year, right? So I think I think his return will probably get pushed back to 2017, personally. What's next for him after Burns, Crawford? Can he be the top 140 pounder? Keep up the good work, Ego. First Burns. I think Burns would probably be a likely, and then maybe get a belt. The Crawford, I would love that fight. I absolutely love the fight. I think it's more dangerous than people are giving BRoner credit for. In terms of, I think he could put up a better fight than people think versus Crawford, because Crawford is very good. But you got to keep in mind, BRoner was in there with guys who were a lot bigger than him. Shawn Porter used to fight at like 160, 165 as an amateur. Marcos Maidana rehydrates to 165 plus pounds, and he can crack, and he had a ton of experience. You know what I'm saying? So Terence Crawford, he's obviously more technical than those guys, but in terms of punching power, BRoner might be able to take his punch. He was able to take Maidana. It just depends. You know what I mean? Crawford's more accurate, but who knows if he's a bigger puncher. Like, is there anyone that really thinks that Crawford at 140 is a bigger puncher than Marcos Maidana at 147? We've seen Maidana hurt and stop guys at 47, right? I don't know. We don't know where Crawford's power would be if he was up there. So BRoner did that after one fight. Paulie Malignaggi fight. He jumped up 2 weight classes and still was able to go the distance. A lot of people failed to take that into consideration. Yes, he got thrashed by Maidana, but his second fight at that division, he was able to take Maidana's best shots and only get knocked down twice and not get stopped. Versus you look at other warriors like Jesus Soto Caras, known for having a good chin, a granite chin, at least at that time, right? Maidana stopped him, right? And that was, I think, maybe Maidana's first fight with Robert Garcia. And also Josito Lopez, another guy who's pretty durable, and he's known for being a warrior. He got stopped by Maidana before that, and BRoner didn't get stopped. Maidana had like a 3-win TKO streak, and then BRoner was another victory for him, but it wasn't a stoppage. So the Crawford fight is better than what people think. I would love that fight. I just don't know if politics would allow for that fight. In the last part of your question, can he be the top 140 pounder? It's going to be difficult because he would have to go through Crawford. Crawford is currently the best 140 pounder, and for BRoner to want that title, he would have to beat a guy like Crawford. I don't know. There's a couple fights I would want to see him in at 140 after Burns, Victor Postal. That would be a good style matchup for BRoner. There's a couple guys. I'm trying to think. I don't know if Mikey Garcia would move up to 140 for that. He fought his last fight against Elio Rojas at 140, maybe something like that. But there's a couple guys that I wouldn't mind seeing BRoner fight at 140. Crawford, you have to go through him to be the best at 140. He has the most belts right now. Next question is from Frederick Cotton. Ego, do you think King Kong Ortiz can take over, I guess you're supposed to put over the heavyweight division now? I mean, certainly from a skill standpoint, he definitely has what it takes to be very, very hard to beat. The power's there. He has the Cuban footwork. He's a smart fighter, smarter than what people think. You know what I mean? A lot of times, guys get typecast that have power. You know what I mean? Luis King Kong Ortiz clearly has power. So sometimes when you're a knockout artist, some people fail to realize the other things that you do well. And I think King Kong Ortiz he's in the top crop of fighters. Basically, for me, this is it. If the three top guys that I see, if there was like some kind of tournament being the last man standing, it would be Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, and Luis King Kong Ortiz. Tyson Fury's good, Klitschko's good, but those are the guys that I really see. Joseph Parker's good. Those are the guys that I see beating the most guys, right? And that's just what it is. So mix and match any of those guys. For AJ, it depends on how he develops, because he's the less seasoned. I mean, of course, he's an Olympic gold medalist, but some people thought he shouldn't have won a gold medal in that bout, in that particular match. But he still did it. He still has momentum, but he only has 17 fights versus Wilder has more fights than that, 20, 30 fights. King Kong Ortiz is 36 to 38 years old or whatever age, ton of seasoning. So those are the top 3 heavyweights right now. And on any given day, I mean, I think any of those guys can win. It just really, really depends on, like, to me, when it comes to Joshua, Wilder, and Ortiz, it might be who strikes first. Whoever gets hit with the cleanest shot, that the other person can't recover from, because they all got massive power. That's what makes the division interesting. Back in the old days, the heavyweight division was known for that. You know what I mean? You got a guy like Holyfield with the crazy chin and power. You got Mike Tyson. You got Lennox Lewis. You got Cannon Briggs. You have Tommy Morrison, Ray Mercer. Like, most of those dudes can all crack. And that's what it's getting back to in the heavyweight division. You got these super heavyweights, and they're all good, and they're all powerful, and they're all strong. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to it. It's like, no disrespect, but like guys like Chris Bird, he's not the most powerful guy, so he would have to win off of different things. But now the heavyweight division is getting back where you have a ton of, you know what I mean, the David Tua type, Ray Mercer guys that all have power. So you mix and match any of those dudes and anything can happen. Next question is from David Granados. I was about to say, you're the one that knocked out Amir Imam. Just kidding. Ego, what do you think is next for Rigo? Haven't seen much of him lately. Now, I think they're trying to get him on the Ward Kovalev card, possibly, because that is a Rock Nation part card, or they're co-promoting its main events in Rock Nation's card. Maybe not. They were trying to get him on the Cotto card, but Cotto doesn't look like he's fighting until 2017, so I'm not really sure. Rigo's had dry spells between people not wanting to fight him and inactivity for promoters didn't want to promote him and stuff like that. So hopefully Rock Nation figures something out. You know what I mean? Something just to keep him busy. Something. You know what I mean? With the ranked top 15 guy would be ideal. Next question is from D.O. Lee. How good is it that Klitschko-Joshua matchup seems more and more likely? And it looks like, I did a couple of videos recently about it. It looks like it's going down December 10th. Pretty awesome, right? Especially when considering the banners each fight is under. Yes, I agree with it. That's a fight. I told people from the beginning, if that happens, that's better than the initial fight. And that's rare in the sport of boxing, where you get a fight that falls through, and the understudy fight, in my opinion, is better than the actual fight that was going to happen at first. Sometimes you see it in UFC where Conor McGregor is supposed to fight RDA, and then he gets injured, and then you put together Nate Diaz, and some people preferred to see the Nate Diaz, and it turned out to be a possible trilogy fight where they had at least a rematch. You know what I mean? But we don't really always see that in boxing. There's a handful of times where I could think of where it played out like that, where the outcome for someone pulling out or fight falling through got replaced with a better fight, and this is definitely one of those situations. Another recent time, Luis Collazo, he was supposed to fight Sammy Vasquez, and then they replaced him with Felix Diaz, and then that ended up being an upset. So then that was a good fight. So I don't know, I would say it's rare in boxing, or at least recently. So I'm just happy that we're getting this type of heavyweight action. Next question is from M1 Han. Yo, Eagle, what's your opinion on what Bellew said about Hayes' pathetic haircut? Is it just a matter of taste, or do you believe Hayes should go to his braided look again, or maybe a fresh Caesar? What's the common hairstyle in your area? I'm in the Bay Area, so it's pretty diverse and diverse. You know what I mean? People got that fuckboy cut with the part on the side, fades and like tapers, shadow tapers, and some dudes have dreads. I don't know. I haven't put too much thought into David Hayes' haircut. Like, I mean, I think I'm more used to, me personally, if I had to say, I think I'm used to him with the braids, even though the braids he had look kind of old school, like Mario, the singer, R&B singer or something like that. But that's just the style he's always had, and I'm used to him with it. So I think he should go back to that. I think at least Cannon Briggs and them wouldn't be making fun of your hair and grabbing your hair and stuff if it was braided back. Next question comes from Kimbo Slice. Is Anthony Joshua now the biggest star in the sport? Stars in combat sports for the last few decades have been measured by pay-per-view buys. Canelo can't sell pay-per-views in a country 6 times bigger than where AJ has to sell them, despite the fact that there is a huge Mexican-American community. I would say Canelo's still the biggest star. I don't know. That's just me. Like, when I think of Canelo news, it seems to get more press and headlines, and a million websites and articles and channels talk about it more so than Anthony Joshua at the moment. But Anthony Joshua's star power is not lacking. But if I had to say who's the bigger star right now, I definitely would say it's Canelo. And it's just because, like I said, you look at the reaction of him not fighting Golovkin or his moves or what he says and things like that right now, it does get more press from the media, right or wrong. It's just kind of what I've noticed. So I would say Canelo's the biggest star, but Andy Joshua's star power is growing. People are excited and watching, and I think he broke into the U.S. market after Canelo, so it's going to take a little bit longer. Like, I know who Andy Joshua is, but not everyone does at this moment. But if he keeps doing what he's doing, then they will know about him. Like right now, I know for a fact my dad, he's a boxing fan, but kind of, he doesn't really watch it updated. You know what I mean? He watches like old fights. He likes the old fights and stuff like that. And he knows who Canelo is, but I don't know if he would know who Anthony Joshua is. I don't think he does. So I think Canelo's the biggest star in boxing. And, you know, I mean, obviously not including Floyd Mayweather because he's retired. Next question is from Black Rob. Hey, Ego, just want to congratulate you making it up to 50,000. Not quite yet, but very close. Thank you. Subscribe, Mark. You have one of the best channels out there. Like the different ideas you put out Monday Mail Day. Here's what they think about you. Ego, Rumor Mill, also Troy King videos. I appreciate your hard work that you put in your brand and content and hope it pays off well. Thank you again. I have two questions. First question is, do you think you may cover a UFC event in the future? Yeah, I would like to. I'm not a stranger. I still consider that's fighting, that's combat, and I've been doing more UFC videos than before. There's actually, in my neck of the woods, Sacramento is like 45 minutes, an hour away to where I live, very close, and they're doing a UFC card with Paige Van Zant and Super Sage. That card is actually in Sacramento, and that's really not all. My family is mostly from Sacramento, and I have a ton of family that live out there still, like relatives and stuff. So I don't know. I don't know, because it's sometimes it's hard to break in the markets because I haven't even researched it. I don't even know who you get credentials through. I heard the UFC is pretty strict, and you know what I mean, I would really be a person coming in, and you know what I mean, they'd be like, oh, you don't really cover UFC. So I don't know exactly the parameters. I have to check around to see where you even apply to fights, but I definitely plan on expanding, and I'm open to it. I just honestly, I've been busy with just boxing and doing some MMA videos and UFC videos on the channel. I haven't bothered to do the research to see how to apply, or there haven't really been any fights nearby that, you know what I mean, that I would want to go to either. But the Sacramento one, that one's close enough, so I might look into that, see what the parameters are or the qualifications or whatever. I'm not really sure, but they may want a little bit more, because like my website, it's majority, there's a section for MMA, but it hasn't been updated thoroughly, you know what I mean? So I have to probably get an MMA writer to help promote all their events and cover the news like I do the boxing stuff. So things in time, probably. And second question is, do you see anyone that can challenge Terence Crawford at 140 besides BRoner if he's focused? No, I mean, as the crop of guys right now that are at 140, I don't really see who would challenge him. Maybe a 35-pounder like Robert Easter, if he moves up. He's like 6 feet tall almost, so I think he could easily make 140. So if he does a little bit more at 135, gets more experience, and then fights him, I think that's a great fight. Also, maybe a guy like Mikey Garcia, who's planning to campaign at 135, get back into the swing of things, long layoff, 2 years off and stuff, and then maybe Mikey Garcia versus Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford did beat him in the amateurs, but you know what I mean? Amateurs and amateurs, maybe something's different now. But I don't really see anyone currently at 140 other than BRoner that even has really a shot to beat him. And I would probably favor Crawford over BRoner. But I think that's a better fight than what people think. Next question, J.O. Clark. Floyd Mayweather said in a recent interview, all legendary champions moved up in weight. Can Gennady Golovkin be considered an all-time great if he never moves up to fight better opposition? Now, that's almost a loaded question. He can be considered an all-time great without moving up, depending on who's in his division and who he fights. So what I mean by that is, I don't think you have to move up multiple divisions to be considered an all-time great. But the flip side of that, you do have to fight all-time greats to be an all-time great. You have to fight elite level competition. So if in your era, your current generation, there are no guys that are considered elite, then you can't be considered great. You know what I'm saying? Unless you fight guys who are in your division or around your division who are considered elite. And that's what it is with Golovkin. Good fighter, but he has to fight someone who's known elite. Like, I mean, is there anybody who's stupid enough to say if Gennady Golovkin were able to fight Carl Froch, if he didn't retire and all that, and who would say that that's not the best name on his resume? If he stopped Carl Froch, a guy that I don't believe has ever been stopped, how could you not give Golovkin credit? You know what I'm saying? Of course you would give him credit for it. So those are the types of fights. Somebody, Andre Ward, Badou Jack, James, you know what I mean? Like somebody, James DeGale's undefeated. Gilberto Ramirez, he has to keep fighting upper echelon people. Like guys where he's not drastically favored. Here's a question to you. Name one known elite champion, all-time great, first-round Hall of Famer when they retire, that has never went into a fight as an underdog. You know what I'm saying? Since they become quote-unquote mainstream or popular, right? You look at Mayweather. He's been in fights where he was the underdog when he had a name. De La Hoya, Diego Corrales. Some people thought Canelo could beat him. I don't know if they thought he was the underdog per se, but some people thought Canelo was too big and strong for him. Things like that. Same thing with Pacquiao. Pacquiao has went into fights. La Duaba was a fight where he was an underdog. He's been the underdog in fights with Floyd Mayweather, but he still fought him. You know what I'm saying? Different stuff like that. I don't remember any opponent Golovkin's ever fought where he wasn't heavily favored to beat them. And that just goes to show you that his division is not the most popping, is not the most stacked talent pool in boxing. You can't tell me middleweight is equivalent to 147 is right now. You look at 147, how many killers are there in that division? Errol Spence Jr., Keith Thurman, Kell Brook was there, Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, Danny Garcia. That's like killer on top of killer. Then you got guys like Shawn Porter who are just always game as fuck, right? Look at 154. How many killers? The Charlo brothers, Canelo. You got Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. You got Julian J. Rock Williams, killers. Vanes Matarosen, he's like the Shawn Porter of 154, where like if you don't come correct, you don't come prepared, then he'll probably beat you. You know what I'm saying? Middleweight's not like that. We have one kingpin and it's Golovkin, and there's a couple people that may have some slight type of chance, and that's it. I mean, but majority of those people have been stopped before. Like David Lemieux had already been stopped. Danny Jacobs has been stopped. Things like that. So, I mean, bottom line, Golovkin just has to face better opposition to be considered all-time great. Like, you people say, oh, but Marvin Hagler, he stayed in one weight class, but he still fought Mugabe. He still fought Sugar Ray Leonard. He still fought Tommy Hearns in one of the best fights of all time. He fought Roberto Duran. So fighting the right competition, maybe the fighters were different or they were anti-ducking or whatever the situation is, he still had those names on his resume. He was able to fight the people he needed to fight. Now he's considered an all-time great. Golovkin, that hasn't been his story. Maybe the fighters want different purses or they're scared or his team doesn't want to do a split, whatever the situation, I don't care. But the bottom line is it doesn't change the fact that you haven't fought them, right? And if you absolutely can't, you're going to let them ruin your career, or you're going to do something about it and move up, or maybe move down and budge and give Canelo a catch weight or when he wanted to catch weight, which doesn't seem like it's an issue. You know what I mean? Fight Cotto at 155. I mean, you got to do something. Like, there has to be some give. If you want your career and legacy to be indefinitely remembered, you know what I mean? There has to be some kind of consideration. When Sugar Ray Leonard fought Hagler, there were demands that, like ring size, glove size. Same thing with Mayweather, De La Hoya. De La Hoya picked the ring size, the glove size. He was the favorite, the lion's share of the purse. You know what I mean? So maybe Golovkin has to forfeit something. Go in some direction. Move down to 158 to fight Canelo, say, or whatever. You know what I mean? If Canelo wanted to fight at 155, maybe you have to do that. Is it right? No, you can get on Canelo's case, but maybe you have to do that. And if you don't want to sacrifice, then maybe you could go in the other direction and move up for a fight or two. You know what I mean? Fight a Gilberto Ramirez, Badou Jack, James DeGale, show your worth, and then drop back down and see if Billy Joe Saunders, Danny Jacobs is ready. I mean, it's getting to the point where I can't feel sorry for that when his team isn't making the decisions to move beyond the people that are ducking him. Like, you look at Anthony Joshua, he's been moving along pretty well. In 17 fights, he already beat a champion, Charles Martin, right? He's going to fight Klitschko, a guy who hadn't lost until recently, until last year, hadn't lost in almost a decade, right? Before that, he fought a couple other undefeated guys, Dominic Brazil, guy who went to the Olympics, Gary Cornish. He avenged the amateur loss where he was knocked down and hurt, and that was against Dillian White, who is still knocking people out, just had a knockout recently. You know what I'm saying? So for whatever reason, Anthony Joshua, if you really look at it, Anthony Joshua is a champion now, and he has a higher knockout percentage than Golovkin. And this is my personal opinion. I believe, based on Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, when I watch them get knockouts, they have more power per capita than Golovkin. Golovkin can have better technique or whatever the situation, but when you're talking about brute force, raw power, I clearly see more power in Wilder and Anthony Joshua, because look at their opponent's reaction to getting hit. Look at Dominic Brazil's face. He did an interview after Anthony Joshua surviving 6 or 7 rounds and finally getting stopped, and his face was mangled. You look at Charles Martin, he looked like gone and out of it. Like, man, he just looked super buzzed when he got hit. Like he got hit. Look at Dillian White, how he fell when Anthony Joshua leveled him. And Dillian White's a big dude. He's like probably like 262 or something. I don't know how much he weighs, but he's pretty big, right? Golovkin gets knockouts too, but when he fights guys who are formidable size, they don't look quite as devastating. You know what I mean? And I'm not taking away from his skill set, because he knows how to put it together offensively, but there's a difference in power. But the reason I'm doing this compare and contrast is because Anthony Joshua looks like a killer. He's young. He looks the part. Like, if you look at Anthony Joshua, he looks like he'll fuck you up. He's diesel. He's big as hell. You see his Instagram. He's training all types of crazy training drills and tire and ropes and stuff like that. He's doing all this, yet they can still make it worth the opponent's while to fight him. You know what I mean? And he's still a knockout artist, and he has all knockouts, 100% knockouts. And his team is finding a way to get it done, to get Klitschko in the ring, to get a champion like Charles Martin, Dominic Brazil. You know what I mean? And you could say, oh, it's because they feel they could beat his technique, but they're still seeing his raw Mack truck power, and they still are doing it. So to me, there has to be a way that Golovkin and team can get some of these fights made. And again, it might cost you, like Danny Jacobs. They refuse the purse split. If you feel he's scared and you kind of sort of have him cornered, and the WBA ordered it, and you, before it went to purse bid, you could have agreed to maybe giving up another 5-10%, and that gets it done, then maybe that's what you have to do. It's not, like I said, it's hard to feel remorseful. It's just getting to the point where it's like the boy who cried wolf. Okay, like, people will still step in with Rigo, Anthony Joshua, Pacquiao, or whoever else the person is, so there has to be a way to get it done. Now, the way to get it done, it might require you to reduce your purse by 5 to 10%. But you still need the name. That's what it boils down to. Next question, Avery Vice, great channel, Boxingego. When Errol Spence beats Kelly Brook or the challenger for the IBF belt, do you think Shawn Porter versus Errol Spence is a good voluntary defense fight? Yes. If Shawn Porter was to lose, would the loss affect his career? I mean, I think a loss will always affect your career, especially how Errol Spence is making his opponents lose. Like, because, I mean, I don't even remember the last time he went the distance. So a lot of them are nasty stoppages. So yeah, that would definitely affect Shawn Porter's career if he were to get stopped. But Shawn Porter's been pretty durable thus far, and it's a good gamble for him. Like, in terms of, if Errol Spence has a belt, he can get his old belt back if he can beat him. You know what I'm saying? The belt he lost to Kell Brook. So a loss will affect anyone's career, especially if it's a stoppage. So yes, I do think that, but it's still a good opportunity, and I don't think Shawn Porter really shies away from challenges, so let's see it. Shawn Porter, I definitely think that's a good fight. He's a good fight for anyone at 147. Next question, Greg Sanders. What division is the most underrated in your opinion? 154. I would say 154 is. It's just so many killers. I listed them earlier. Demetrius Andrade, Canelo. You got Willie Nelson, Vanes Matarosan, Julian J. Rock Williams, the Charlo brothers, right? You have Erickson Lubin, I think. Also, Jared Hurd Swift. It's deep. That's all you need to know. It's deep. And I like it. The other division that's a sleeper division to me, I think is like, I want to say 130, 135-ish. I don't know. I might be misquoting some people, but 130 and 135 has a lot of players. Jason Sosa, Vasil Lomachenko, Nicholas Walters, and Tank Davis, I believe. 35 has like Robert Easter Jr., Richard Comey, Mikey Garcia said he's campaigning there. The guy, the Zoltan or whatever that Mikey Garcia might fight, he's an underrated fighter. So Felix Verdejo, those are the divisions that are slept on too right now, so underrated. I'd say 130, 135, and then 154. The other divisions that are stacked, that are getting more notoriety, would be heavyweight and 147. Next question, Owen Brown. Ego. Whatever happened to David Haye versus Cannon Briggs fight? You gotta ask David Haye. I don't know. Thought if Briggs fought and won on Haye's undercard, he'd get the fight with Haye. Yeah, that's what we all thought, but I guess, you know what I mean, you change the goals or whatever, and Haye's saying something now like it's not a pay-per-view fight and the fight has to build up. So it's really on, it sounds like David Haye. He made the arrangement, the pact, and he's not being a man of his word when it comes to that. Next question, Corey Cush. Ego, have you heard anything on Shakur Stevenson? Not really. I remember there was a rumor Floyd offered him $2 million as a signing bonus. Yeah, that was a rumor he put on Twitter. Someone asked him that, and he's like, not that I've heard of. That's not true. I haven't really heard anything. I mean, the Rio Olympics, he's probably still getting over his loss and only getting a silver medal when he was planning on leaving with the gold. So he's probably just chilling right now, getting his mind right to enter the pro game. But I haven't really heard any other real big news from Shakur Stevenson other than he had that hometown. I think they maybe gave him the key to the city. They had a hometown celebration, and he had a TMT hat on. That's the last I really heard of him or anything like about him turning pro. Next question, Pardees Hafiz. Sup, Ego? I like to see Klitschko-Joshua, but wouldn't it be better if they made Deontay Wilder versus Joshua? Yeah, but that's not realistic right now because Deontay Wilder is just coming off of a hand surgery that required him to get pins in his hand, so he's not fighting for the rest of the year. So I like Klitschko-Joshua because both fighters are available, both fighters are healthy. Klitschko was training for Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury tested positive for cocaine and drugs, so the show must go on. You know what I mean? Deontay Wilder, he's out of commission right now, so I do want to see Joshua versus Wilder, but I mean, Wilder probably wouldn't want to take a Joshua fight coming off of an injury. I mean, who does? Especially a hand injury, because you don't want to be in the ring with a power puncher and powerhouse like Anthony Joshua with one hand operational and the other one out of commission. So it's not realistic. That's the whole point for it to happen this year. And the winner faced Klitschko. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like the order of operation. Both fighters, Klitschko and Joshua, are available now, so they're fighting each other. I think that would be something even higher than the $30 million. P.S. Keep up the good work. Thanks to you, I get to know the sport of boxing better. Not a problem. And not to be so casual all the time. Take care, bro. Greetings from Sweden. And sorry for my bad English. Your English is actually better than a lot of people. But, yeah, I want to see Wilder Joshua. That's a fight. Eddie Hearn, I talked to him and interviewed him last year, and he said that's a fight they have to build up. This was before Joshua became a champion. I think the craving for that particular fight is definitely going to be there, and people are going to start, especially if Joshua beats Klitschko or stops Klitschko, they're going to be like, wow, and that's going to be the fight everyone's talking about, especially with Tyson Fury out of the loop because people want to see Wilder and Fury, but Fury got to get his life together right now. So hopefully I answered the question. Next question, Christopher Brown. It's early, but how would you see a potential matchup between Joshua and Wilder playing out? I don't know, because that's a pick'em fight to me. And when I told you guys, I don't really like doing too many predictions on here, especially. I mean, sometimes if the fight hasn't been made, but that's a fight that actually might get made. And to me, that's a pick'em fight to the point where I would lean towards Wilder right now, but as time goes on, that's easily subject to change. You know what I mean? If Wilder looks suspect in his next fight and Joshua knocks out Klitschko in December or something, then my opinion might drastically change, because that's not an opinion that I'm super comfortable on. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't bet everything I own that Wilder beats Joshua. You know what I mean? Because again, like I said earlier in this video, that heavyweight fights like that, Ortiz, Joshua, and Wilder, that could be a issue of game planning and who lands first. Whoever lands first, it might be lights out, you know what I mean, or discombobulated to the point where it shortly lights out a couple punches later. So I don't know right now. Right now, I'd probably lean towards Wilder very slightly, Bomb Squad. But again, if I see some things like Joshua versus Klitschko happens, and I see some different things and improvements and advancements, then I might easily sway to the Joshua side. So it kind of depends on when the fight happens and their most recent performances. It's just one of those fights I have to gauge everything to get an honest, true prediction. Next question. Chocolatito Clasher. Yo, what's up, Ego? Love your channel. Keep up the good work. Do you see Roman Gonzalez possibly fighting a bum in his next fight due to him demanding more money for the big fights? It's possible. I don't know how bummy. I think he might still fight someone ranked, but it might not be Carlos Cuadras or Inoue. And it doesn't sound like he wants to fight Estrada in a rematch, to be honest. So he might fight someone lesser or less desired than all three of those guys. Also, if he fought that Japanese guy Inoue, sorry, forgot to spell his name for the unification, who do you see possibly winning? Again, that's another fight where I would probably go back and study the tapes. I've seen Inoue, but I want to watch, and if the fight is announced, then that's where I start doing my research and studying and really watching YouTube videos to determine it. Because Inoue's big. I told people, Inoue's big. Roman Chocolatito didn't look like his punching power was as impactful versus Carlos Cuadras. Like, when he was fighting Brian Valoria, just 3 pounds lighter, his punches look like they have more of a devastating effect. But as you move up in weight, sometimes guys get used to your power. They're tougher up there. They have better chins. They have better stamina. They have more power themselves. So it's really a pick'em fight, Inoue, because Inoue has more experience in that division. Next question is from Jamie Diavila. With Ronda returning after a year off and her title fight with Nunes headlining UFC 207, how many pay-per-view buys do you believe it will do? I would say a mil. Probably a mil, 850,000 to a mil. It depends on how they stack the card. I haven't really heard the card, so it's kind of hard for me to gauge. Like, when I do any type of predictions, just FYI, I try to factor in as much data as possible. You know what I mean? And if we're talking about pay-per-view with the availability of streaming and all this stuff, it all depends on things like every parameter like that. Like, who's on the card? Who's the headliner? Is there another competing card on the same night? Things like that, like a boxing card. Also, in your opinion, is there anything that could be done to limit cherry picking so we can see more competitive boxing matches? No. I mean, because it's really in the hands of the promoters and the teams and stuff. So, I mean, there's always something you can do, but it's just a matter of if the people, the powers that be, the sanctioning bodies are all going to join forces to put a stop in and make sure like certain bouts aren't sanctioned. And it hasn't happened thus far. We've seen Canelo, Liam Smith, Canelo Khan, Danny Garcia versus this upcoming Samuel Vargas. We've seen all these other fights, Golovkin, Ishida, you know what I'm saying? And all these other fights got sanctioned. So, I mean, there's always a solution, but I don't think boxing tries to fix a lot of its problems, like bad scorecards, bad judging, because there's a lot of judges that have horrible scorecards and then they're judging another fight. You know what I mean? Like, I think it was Levi Martinez. I think he was the judge for the Liam Smith fight. So he just had a horrible scorecard for another Canelo fight in Lada, and a lot of people thought Lada got robbed with that 117-111 scorecard, and then now he's back judging plenty of fights in between that, but most importantly, he's judging a Canelo fight. You know what I'm saying? It's weird. Boxing doesn't try to fix this thing. They just tell you to shut up and endure it. Next question, Stephen Kerr. What's poppin', Ego? I just want to know, would you think if AJ versus Klitschko fight happens and AJ wins by knockout? I'd be very impressed. Will this possibly make Wilder want to prove he's the best heavyweight by wanting the AJ fight as soon as possible? I got to stop you right there. He's already called out Joshua, and Joshua was the one that said in due time. So Wilder's already said he wanted to fight him and called him out. He said, let's make sooner now. I did a video on it too, so make sure you guys check it out. So I think Wilder already wants to prove that, and I think he wants to fight Joshua before he gets too good or gets too seasoned. So I think he literally, I think those were his exact words, let's make sooner now. So I think he does want to fight him as soon as possible, as I feel the fight would do huge numbers on pay-per-view. It would. And of course, considering this would also be US versus UK pride sort of fight for who has the best heavyweight currently in this generation. Yeah, I mean, it's a great fight. Please let me know your insight on this. Keep up the good work, brother. It's a great fight. It'll do numbers. Somebody's getting knocked out. I guarantee you that doesn't go to the scorecards. I can't see it. I would be shocked if that went to the scorecards. Wilder and Joshua, I just don't see it. People will get their money's worth. The buildup will be there, because Joshua ain't no punk. You know what I mean? And Wilder, he's charismatic, bomb squad. It'll be on and popping, because Dominic Breazeale kind of got under Joshua's skin and he was pissed and he took it out on him in the fight. So it's a good fight, good build-up, good fight, makes money for everybody involved, and it would establish a unification. I mean, there's no complaints from me. It's just all around what boxing needs. No complaints. Next question is from Hakan Kurson. If Joshua beats Klitschko, who's next for Joshua? He's had a pretty decent schedule recently. You know what I mean? A series of undefeated guys, like I said earlier. Dominic Breazeale, Gary Cornish, Dillian White. And if he beats Klitschko, I would say he's probably in line for maybe a slightly easier fight, like a tune-up style fight, maybe a mandatory versus Joseph Parker, maybe Andy Ruiz winner if they fight in between now. If Andy Ruiz and Joseph Parker fight, maybe something like that. That's probably what I would say. Joseph Parker, Andy Ruiz winner. And then hopefully Wilder can be somewhere after that. Next question is from Zero Vila 28. Yo, Boxing Ego, do you think the winner of Lomachenko versus Walter should be a top 3 pound for pound? Top 3 might be a little bit extreme, but from a skill point, they're definitely up there. Whoever wins that fight, especially if they look good in doing it, they're up there. I don't know. Me personally, I don't know. I don't really put in too much thought in the pound for pound list because I don't like them, because they're all subject. And it's just kind of what you like, and there's favoritism. People put Roman Chocolatito. He just had his HBO debut last year, and a lot of people haven't seen his career prior to that, and they're putting him on the top 1 pound for pound list. And you ain't never even seen his fight until he started fighting on HBO. You know what I'm saying? Versus guys like Andre Ward, who've been on HBO and been fighting main events, guys like Kovalev and stuff like that. So it's all subject. I definitely rate them. I wouldn't put them in top 3 pound for pound, but I definitely put them up there, and I have no problem if they're at top 10, somewhere in the top 10, maybe towards the back of it. But it's a meaningful fight. It's a good fight. No complaints. And the final question is from Mr. Ibrahim. Do you think that Shawn Porter needs to move up to 154 because he's stripped down naked for weigh-in against Thurman? If so, how do you think he will do up there? As I said earlier in this video, he fought in the amateurs at 160, 165, so he could probably do pretty good for himself. The biggest difference is the guys, he's shorter than a lot of the guys. Some of the guys, I've met all of them, like, you know what I mean? Not all of them, but I met Shawn Porter, Julian Williams, Austin Trout. You know what I mean? All these guys are pretty big. You know what I mean? Charlo, one of them looks like he's like 6 feet tall. So that's going to be the biggest deficit. But sometimes being short like Mike Tyson or Shawn Porter can work to your benefit. Make people reach and overextend themselves, stuff like that. So he has experience with the weight. I don't think he needs to move up to 54. If I was his team or trainer, I wouldn't say move up to 54. There's too much action at 47 to be moving up. You know what I mean? And there's arguably bigger fights. Shawn Porter versus Danny Garcia, or Shawn Porter versus Julian Williams. You know what I mean? You move up and fight a bigger guy and a guy with punching power from Philly. If you had to pick a Philly fighter to fight, you would probably pick Danny Garcia because that fight's going to do better. You know what I mean? There's just too much action at 147, so I don't think he has to move up. As far as him weighing in naked, I think that might be customary. I think someone said he likes to just weigh in naked. Pause. But I think I did really hear that from someone. Like, he just liked to weigh in naked just to make sure so he passes and there's no issue. But I don't know. That's just maybe hearsay. Let me know how you guys think I did this week. I try to get to a lot of questions. I will be back next week, Monday Mail Day. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and also the like button as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off.